Waiting for the stream to start. All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome to Awarewolf Radio. My name is Justin Deschamps, founder of stillnessinthestorm.com. And today we're missing our co-host, Neil Gar. Neil Gar is Portal to Ascension.org. He is not going to be joining us today. Not to worry, though, everything's all set with him. So we'll have some brief announcements. And today I've entitled this show, Rise of the Hero and the Saving Power of Hope. Because, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, we're dealing with some crazy times right now. Lots of civil unrest happening, lots of deep state manipulation happening, lots of opportunities to gain wisdom, become the hero, and in the process, transcend all of the fear that the powers that should not be trying to force down our throats. So to further this conversation today, we're going to have on a special guest, David Whitehead. He's going to be coming on a little bit later. And I had the pleasure of seeing him in Free Your Mind in 2016 and 2017. So he's really has a lot of awesome information, perspectives, and empowering thoughts to offer. This is one thing I think that we as a people right now need to really learn how to cultivate. There's a lot of hope. Hope in a wise way, hope guided by truth can have an incredible power to keep us sane, keep us rational, and prevent us from being pushed into a state of trauma where our lower faculties, our more animalistic, primitive, rage-oriented faculties can overtake the conscious mind. And so that's what we're going to be discussing today and a whole lot more. So before we get into all that, I have some brief announcements. Portal to Ascension, they're doing a lot of great stuff. Portaltoascension.org, that is my co-host Neil Gar. That's his outlet. So go ahead and check that out. He's got a bunch of events happening right now. I just wanted to highlight a couple of them. On June 13th, on Saturday, there will be a training with Ascended Masters with Laura Eisenhower, which is a 2-day workshop. So go ahead and check that out. You can register on the site. And after that, we have on the 14th of June, the 14th, we have Billy Carson, Scriptures, ET, Science, and Atlantis. So go ahead and check that out at portaltoascension.org. Now, for myself, I've got a couple of announcements. So if you didn't get an opportunity to check it out, I do the show Into the Storm on edgeofwonder.tv. It's an awesome show. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in there. It's a place, because of edgeofwonder.tv, because it's a private platform, I can talk about all sorts of cool stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm pulling out all of these nuggets I've had in my bag for years and weaving a really awesome tapestry for everybody. A lot of people like it. And I actually had the Edge of Wonder team wonderfully put a free episode of that series, episode number 6, on YouTube. So if you want to check out that episode, go to bit.ly/Loosh, LOOSHE, Science, SCIENCE, and you can check that out. Again, it's a free episode. And then if you really like it, you can join the platform. It's only $10 a month at Edge of Wonder, $10 a month, excuse me, at edgeofwonder.tv. And they've got tons of awesome information in there. Simon Esler's on there. We got John Vivanco is going to be coming on soon. Lots of really great people, tons of awesome information. And Ben and Rob are doing great stuff over there. So go ahead and check them out. In line with that, I also have another announcement. So season 2 of Ultimate Plan of the Draco, which is the topic that I'm covering right now on Into the Storm at edgeofwonder.tv, that's actually coming to an end. The last episode of season 1, season 1 is coming to an end. Season 2 is going to debut on the 23rd. So go ahead and check out all of the 13 episodes of season 1 that are up on edgeofwonder.tv now. Lots of awesome information. The last 3 episodes I just did are all about the Lucifer Rebellion as depicted in the Urantia book. And boy, if you're trying to figure out, like, what is the psychology, what is the philosophy of a service to self being, what is the thought process of a psychopath, of a deep stater, of an occultist, a dark occultist, of a manipulator, you're going to have an amazing presentation of ideas and ideology in this Lucifer Rebellion story that I've been presenting for everybody. So go ahead and check that out. Season 2 is going to debut on the 23rd of June. So that's in a few weeks, or 2 weeks actually. And we will likely have some type of live stream Q&A end of season recap that will happen next week. We're still getting the logistics of that hammered out. So go ahead and check that out. Keep your eye on Edge of Wonder. If you haven't gone to the website, edgeofwonder.tv, I'm pretty sure they have a newsletter. You can sign up for updates. And then, of course, you can go to stillnessinthestorm.com and you can sign up for updates there at the top. So let's set the context here. I mean, the last time we spoke with everybody, coronavirus was still the big thing. The lockdown was still the big thing. As far as we can tell, the deep state had manufactured the seeming crisis of the pandemic. And what I mean by that is that I'm not necessarily arguing there isn't a virus, but what I am arguing, and there's a lot of peer-reviewed science to support what I'm about to say, is that the coronavirus is itself not as bad as we've been led to believe. As a matter of fact, there's been a whole bunch of reports that suggest that the death rate is barely above 0.03%. So it's below flu season death tolls. It's below all sorts of death tolls and various other types of forms of death that people can have. And so what that means is that the fear that is being pushed as a justification for a lockdown is manufactured. And so this lockdown that everybody's been experiencing is itself a manufactured event. Again, not to say that the virus doesn't have some validity to it. So, well, now here it is. It's like the virus has disappeared, that you look at the mainstream news, the coronavirus, the pandemic, the social distancing, all of a sudden it's poof, it's not necessarily a big issue anymore. And it makes you wonder, why is that the case? Why is it that all of a sudden it's not even an issue anymore for us to gather, to protest, to riot, where wearing a mask is more about hiding your identity from the police than it is about, protecting people from potential communication of the coronavirus? Well, I would argue that this is part of, a mainstream or a manipulated event, a deep state type of manipulated event. And what I mean by that is last week, as I'm sure a lot of people know, the tragic death of George Floyd took place. And, I won't necessarily recap everything, but I'm sure everybody here knows, because you've been seeing the reports, that this is clearly a tragedy. By all accounts, he really did die. He really was killed by a police officer who obviously lacked serious morals. And the whole country is in an uproar because of this, or at least that's what we seem to be being led to believe. How many people are actually outraged at the level that the media is pushing? I don't know. I mean, in my own life, I see people certainly upset, but not a whole lot of people that I'm in contact with, that I'm talking to. And I got a lot of, liberal friends, so to speak. They're not like pushing this idea that we can somehow burn people's businesses down, mass loot and riot, hurt other people, hurt Trump supporters, hurt people that we think are potential racists in some way to create social change. So I would argue that while the death of George Floyd is a serious tragedy, it is being weaponized. And one of the ways it's being weaponized is through good intentions. And this is not a new thing. The powers that be, the deep state, they've known how to do this for a very long time. And to get into some of the psychology, when you have a good intention, a good intention is like one piece of the puzzle, one ingredient in a recipe for potentially doing something good in the world. What is the other piece of that intention, that good intention? Another good intention is also an ideal. So if you're idealistic, if you want to live in a world where everybody's equal, well, how do you make that world a reality? And what does everybody being equal actually mean? We have to get clear about what these things mean. Well, if you have not taken the time to understand the process by which we pragmatically and practically implement a good intention, then what will happen is you will be worked up into a kind of almost religious fervor about how much you want this intention to become a reality. And then the deep state manipulators come in when you're all emotionally invested, and they drag you along a course of what they think the way to get this intention implemented is. And as I'm sure a lot of you have already agree, the method that they're using is one of manipulation and control. So if you don't know how to implement a good intention, and you're not necessarily active in the process of trying to do that, then you will look for somebody, look for an ideologue, like a celebrity or a politician. You look for some activist group like Antifa, who speaks to you and gives you rhetoric and makes you believe that they're going to take your good intention, your cherished sacred intention, and do something with it, and eventually bring about this, better world that everybody wants, this utopia. But if you don't really know how this utopia is going to get implemented, if you don't assessing the means by which this good intention and this ideal gets expressed, then in the act of trying to pursue this ideal, you might actually make the world worse. And I would argue that's exactly what we are seeing right now. The George Floyd death triggered a seed in the collective consciousness of humanity. We know that there's police brutality out there, but odd as it might sound, not every police person or person in law enforcement is a horrible person. I know police people. I know police officers. I've spoken to good police officers. The ones I've spoken to, I would argue there's a majority of them who joined the force for a good reason, because they actually wanted to support their communities, to defend the peace, to defend people's rights and property, and actually keep the world a good place as much as possible, and even possibly advance the goodness in the world. But what happens is they take the worst and bad examples and they showcase them to draw up this fervor in people, because we want to make the world a better place. And if we're not careful in that zeal and quest to make the world a better place, we'll be manipulated. And so that's what's happened. Now, think about it. Police brutality is not anything new. I follow a website that tracks, police brutality and crimes of the law enforcement being corrupt and doing all sorts of horrible things. And believe me, there's a lot of horror out there. So what I'm getting at here is that, why is it that George Floyd's death, which is one amongst a litany of deaths that happen all the time, there's probably at least a dozen I can cite from this website I'm talking about just in the past few months. Why is it that this one death is being heralded and showcased to the world in a way to draw up this emotional investment in trying to change the system? Well, it's for deep state manipulation reasons. It's because they're weaponizing our good intentions against us. And if you think about how the media is promoting rioting, I mean, the deep state politicians that I've seen, the celebrities, the media people like CNN, some of these people in CNN, Don Lemon, they're openly endorsing harming another person, damaging another person's property, who, by the way, a lot of the property that's being damaged is the people in these inner city communities. It's not like the rich and famous, the so-called people that are guilty of white guilt are having their property damaged. No, what's happening is that the people that are protesting, their neighborhoods are being invaded by Antifa and these manipulators, and then they stir up through agent provocateur methods this violence, and then before you know it, there's this massive looting spree happening and this mob mentality set in. So given all of this, I think a lot of the audience here, they're quite spiritual, they're hip, they're aware of a lot of these truths. And so having a good discussion about what it would take for us, what can we do as individuals to weather the storm correctly, to find the stillness in the storm, to quote my own website, and to really be the hero in a time of darkness. What can we really do? And I think it will, if we can embrace this idea that we can find hope, and through our bravery, through our heroic capacity, activate within ourselves the hero, then we can not buy into fear, because that's what they want us to do. They want us to stay in fear. They want us to assume everything's going to hell in a handbasket. They want us to assume that the people who care about truth, freedom, and justice are actually the bad guys, which is not the case, so that we stay in a position of being manipulated. So given all that, we're going to have a great discussion with David Whitehead. So let me go ahead and bring on David. Now, David Whitehead is a host of the Unslaved podcast. He is also, give me one moment, let me pull up, here we go. He's also on YouTube. You can find him on Truth Warrior David Whitehead if you do a search for that. And his Instagram is at DW Truth Warrior. And I got a chance to see David at Free Your Mind. And one of the things I really liked about David is he's a martial art master, I believe. He's actually a sensei. So he teaches people martial arts. And one of the things that you encounter when you're trying to do martial arts is you have to deal with the boundary or the interchange between an ideal and a practical reality. You might want to throw a flying jump kick, but once you go to try it, you're going to come to terms with the reality. And the reality is you're probably going to have to develop a lot of skill and wisdom to implement that. So with that concept, we're going to have an opportunity through what David's sharing here to really dive into these issues and see how we can better expand our consciousness. So without further ado here, let's go ahead and bring David on. David, are you there, buddy?
Am I live? Is the mic hot? How are we doing? How's it going, Justin?
Hey, you are live. How's it going, David? Welcome to the show.
Very good. And fantastic introduction there. Wow. Really, really good. Very insightful. Good synopsis of what's going on. And yeah, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be on the show, man. Thanks for the invitation.
I'm really glad you could come on. I think nothing would be better right now than for us to have this discussion, especially with what you have to offer. So to get my audience up to speed, can you give us a little of an idea of what you're into, what your passion is, and what your focus is right now?
Well, I named my show Truth Warrior. That's always been my own personal, I guess, vlog or attempt at looking at some of the very extraordinary mysteries of the world, the big questions of life. You know, who am I? Where am I going? What kind of crazy world do I live in? And what the hell's happening in the world? And I've been doing this work since probably about 2007 is when I started doing my first videos and started posting openly about my thoughts on some of the bigger issues. And it's been quite the journey. So I've done all kinds of stuff. I've conducted tours across Canada, which is the country that I live in. And I've done, all different kinds of radio, TV, podcasting. I hooked up with occult researcher and alternative historian Michael Tessarian years ago, and I've been working with him closely on air and off air for many years now. Trying to go through the many rabbit holes that his research presents and try to bring it out to the public in a way that they can hopefully understand. That's the work that I do with Unslaved, which is, you can find all that information at unslaved.com. And then my public work is obviously the Truth Warrior podcast. And then until before the entire lockdown, I was a professional martial arts instructor that ran my own martial arts school. I had a school in Toronto when I used to live there for many years. And then my wife and I moved out to the West Coast and continued doing our practice here. And sadly, my gym was permanently closed as a result of the lockdown. And so now I've invested all of my time, energy, and commitment into doing this work of trying to teach martial arts in a philosophical way to help do exactly what you're saying, Justin, which is to activate that inner warrior, the hero in all of us, and try to find out some sense, try to find some truth, some reason with what's happening in the world when we're just bombarded with all kinds of different opinions and red herrings and just a plethora of different information. It's very hard for the average person to sort through. And so I'm trying to do my very best, take my shot at trying to help clear up some of these things with the very best that I can possibly do, and just, add my take and my opinion and the research that I've done onto the table of discussion for what it's worth.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, it's a tragedy that your dojo got shut down, man. That's really awful.
Yeah, I'm very sad about it just because, first of all, some of the things are slowly opening up, but the gyms are going to be the last ones. And the rules are so outrageously ridiculous and expensive for any gym owner, small business owner to actually implement, that it's borderline criminal. And there's actually people that are getting ready to prepare lawsuits and protests and all kinds of things. The government here in Canada has gone absolutely, totally insane, doing all kinds of horrible things. We can get into that later. But that's what government does a lot of times. And, it's sort of one of those things that you got to roll with. And as somebody that has been an entrepreneur for a long time, I've learned a long time ago that you have to have multiple backup systems in place. You can't just put all your pennies into one pot. So thank God that I have the amazing people that have supported my work over the years, that allow me to do this, that allow me to put food on the table for my family, and do the work that I'm passionate about. And I know it's a fair exchange. I've had the honor of working with a lot of amazing people over this time. And I got to say, channels like yours, channels like mine, the other people that I speak to that do work in this field, their channels are exploding. It's a positive sign, because I actually do feel, Justin, that this is a time of opportunity. As much as there's tragedy, fear, chaos, disruption, disorder happening around us, a weird thing is happening. And I know you've probably picked up on it based on our conversations, that people are now in a position where they're sort of forced to pay attention to what's happening. Whereas before, when there wasn't any kind of lockdown or any kind of rioting or any of these major world events happening, I think a lot of people were able to just sort of sweep all this stuff aside and just go, interesting subjects, Dave, very cool. All right, back to Kim Kardashian and whatever the hell's happening in the media, back to the normal world, back to ignoring what's happening around me. And now you can't get out of it. It's on everybody's doorstep. It's been what we've been talking about for years. I've dedicated 18 years of my life to this. I'm sure you've dedicated quite a bit of yourself as well. And all I hear from everybody that I speak to that's been doing this is that people are ready now more than ever to ask the big questions of life, to find out who and what they are, to activate their inner potential, to get out in the world and actually be a positive force for change, as opposed to a destructive force that we see happening in the media. The media is trying to tell people that we're all divided and it's race war and class war and gender war and this war and that war, when it's not. It's happening, but they're not filming all the other things that are going on, which is actually more of a unifying force and a force of awakening and a force of courage, strength, and people that are fighting for health. They're fighting for the future of their children. And I'm just so encouraged every single day that I've been waking up over these past 3 months to see that tide changing. So I'm not pessimistic. I'm sitting back, eating the popcorn and watching these bastards fall on their own sword.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was just having a conversation with a colleague of mine about, the fact that if you have context, if you have the backstory to know what's happening, then is unlike what the deep state wants you to believe, which is everything's going to hell in a handbasket, we're actually on the cusp of probably one of the greatest awakenings humanity has ever seen, potentially. I mean,
Yes.
What I think is happening is that, the deep state is desperate. They never intended certain people to get into positions of political power. And they've been having their supply lines cut. And I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that's happening. And so now what we're seeing is, all assets deployed, that they're just pulling out all of their guns. The lies of the media is just spewing so much. And if you know how to interpret this correctly, then there's a lot of reason to be hopeful. So, given that, do you think that there is a positive force out there that might be countering some of this deep state that we're seeing right now?
Yes. Well, I mean, I like to consider myself part of that. Even my little tiny contribution, I'm shooting a few arrows over into the camp of the enemy here and there. You're doing your work. Everybody I'm speaking to, like I said, we're doing this. We've been working at this for a long time, trying to wake people up to the truth. The truth is all that matters. And the truth is what's right, not our opinions, not our belief systems, not what we think is real. It's about understanding what has really been going on. And I know a lot of this stuff can seem dark and intimidating to people because I do cover some very serious subject matter on my show. I know you cover many of those subjects as well. But, I kind of go off that old quote. I think it was Vernon Howard who said something to the lines of, human sickness is so severe that many turn away from it, but those who actually look at it become well. And what that says to me is it's a very deep martial art sort of warrior principle, which is that it's nice to think theoretically. It's nice to, contemplate things on a very deep philosophical level, because that can help build your mind to a place where you can actually bring something forth into tangible reality. But if we don't do both ends of that spectrum of thinking and we just kind of sit around and wait for a savior to come and save us, then I believe that that's also a big problem. So as much as I would actually agree that there are some good people working in government, there are some good people working in the police forces, there are some good people working within the institutions, within the intelligence agencies, the military. I've spoken to many of them. They are waking up as well. This is something that's happening to all people in the world. Doesn't matter what color you come from, what race, what political affiliation, none of that stuff matters. We're seeing humanity wanting freedom and realizing that we're in a position right now where freedom is being taken away under the guise of flat out deception and lies. And people are seeing that every single day. And so we are the awakening, but I would say that, yes, I do believe that There have been what you can call white hats, or people that have been working from within all the different systems, the scientific communities, the medical communities, the, even in the education system, believe it or not, there's been people that have been trying to reform the education system, people trying to reform the legal system. But, everybody sits back and they just kind of point their finger up the hill and they just go, oh, institutions are all evil, just blow them all up. And I guess that's kind of the vibe that Antifa has right now, just burn the whole thing to the ground. And we don't really have any idea of what we're going to replace it with, but it needs to be destroyed. So let's just kill it. When there are other people that I think are working a little bit more pragmatically. They're using intelligence, they're using strategy. I believe there's a lot of that going on with what's happening with President Trump right now. As much as that might rub people the wrong way, there's a lot of disinformation out there about what's happening in regards to him. I personally have been cheering on many of the moves that he's been making, even if I critique other moves that have been made. What I'm just seeing here as sort of a big picture is that people everywhere, from everywhere you can imagine, are really starting to wake up. And I've had my finger on the pulse for a long time, as I know you have, Justin, and many of your listeners probably have as well. And I think this is the time. This is our best opportunity ever to try to show our friends, our families, our neighbors that a better world awaits us when we confront these lies and this deception and this corruption, this rampant corruption. I love Dr. Judy Mikovits, for example, who's just an amazing example to people of how the media has been working, how the censorship campaigns have been working, how they pick and choose which experts we're supposed to listen to and which experts we're supposed to throw in the trash bin. And, to have someone like her with her background come out and start, doing this documentary Plandemic and doing interviews on London Real and other channels and writing her books and getting it out there as the #1 seller on Amazon. Even though they've tried to, literally someone uploads a video of her and then YouTube takes it down the next second. Then they upload another one, they take it down, and people don't stop. They're putting it all over the place. People want to know what these people have to say. These are the witch burnings of the modern day. These are the people are getting thrown in the gulags, the digital gulags, and human race is saying, hey, well, why are you telling me that I can't listen to this very prestigious and highly credited expert that is telling me that what we're being told is complete nonsense? So regardless of what you think about the individuals and their research, you just have to ask this question. When did we move away from the scientific principle of logic, reason, and evidence? When did we move away from that as a society? Did everybody just sort of forget that was the entire pillar upon which we built Western civilization? It was based on the pillars of freedom. It was based on the pillars of free speech. It was based on the pillars of rights to private property, intellectual property, all these types of things. And when we see all that being completely destroyed in front of us, and then we're told, no, don't listen to those 164 experts from Germany and elsewhere in Europe that are telling you this is a crock. Listen to these 5 handpicked people that work for the World Health Organization, because they are now the arbiters of truth and they are to not be questioned or challenged. Where have I heard this before? And where have I seen one side say, okay, so we're here to do science. We just want you to listen to the science. So here's all the fact-checking websites that are going to check everything you're posting. Here's your surveillance monitors that are going to shut down your posts. In fact, I was even trying to post a link to your YouTube channel, Justin, to tell people that I was going on your show. I tried 4 times in a row and they wouldn't let me post your channel.
Wow.
So I had to post a screenshot of your channel, tell people to go to the channel. So I hope they got it and they're here listening. But again, I've had streams get cut offline talking to people who, again, they're not some guy that I dug up from a trailer park somewhere. These are highly prestigious people that have a piece of the puzzle to give you. And just think about it. When somebody comes out and goes, guys, this is not a plague of some virus. This is a plague of corruption. And here's my history with it. And here's a well-documented, extremely eloquent accounting of my experience. And all they get immediately is you can't have a debate about it. So they're not letting Dr. Judy Mikovits debate any of the Dr. Fauci's or any of these other people. They're not wanting a debate. They're just moving immediately to censorship. And again, I go back in my history books that I've grown up reading and went, where have I seen this before? Mm-hmm. And you start putting dots together and it's pretty easy to see. I feel like you really, really have to have your head in the sand to not see what's really going on here. And I think the problem people are suffering from, Justin, and maybe you can give me your comments on this, is that people are taught to think in a compartmentalized fashion. So they'll think of it like, oh, there's this one issue right here. And whatever the issue we're talking about, well, we're not really out talking much these days to people, but whatever issue we're debating on Facebook, that's the only issue that exists in the world. Because that's the only issue the media is reporting to you. So for the longest time, it was, oh, the virus, everybody's dying. Millions are going to die. The numbers are going to be in the millions. Remember all the experts telling you that? And then, oh, no, it wasn't millions. It was maybe hundreds of thousands. Oh, and then the CDC comes out, adjusts its numbers and went, yeah, I guess it was like half of that. And now all these doctors are coming out saying, we're told to beef up the fatality rate numbers, and guy dies of a gunshot. He died of COVID. Okay, what do you do with that? You get experts coming on and on and on, and still the media just keeps pushing it. I was even trying to watch just a UFC fight night with some buddies the other night, just to kind of break the, just to get, I follow a lot of these martial artists, and in between every round, every commercial break, you had to hear about the guidelines and what all these different companies are doing to support the guidelines. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, can I just be left alone? I just want to watch some sports. I just want to follow some of my favorite athletes. I just want to hang out with some people. I'll keep 6 feet apart, whatever you want, but just leave me alone. They're not leaving you alone, because this is a campaign of propaganda to keep you in a fear-based mind control program. And I know a lot of people think that sounds very dramatic, but it's extremely well documented that your government has spent millions and millions of your tax dollars to study your mind, to study how you tick, to study why certain flicker rates, certain colors, certain tones of voice, certain repetitive words and terms, how they can actually lock you into a very, very small prison in your mind where you cannot think for yourself. At the very least, that's all we're trying to break people out of, is to say, hey, we're all trying to figure out what's really going on. I got a lot of suspicions about many of the things that have happened, and I've documented them in my interviews. But can you at least see that you're being led, you're being steered towards certain information and steered away from other information? That's not how science works. That's not how a free society works. So all I've been laboring to do is to say, here, I'm not asking you to reach wildly and speculate wildly. I'm just asking you to think for yourself. I'm going to show you 2 polarizing perspectives, and I want you to tell me which one you think matches up more closely with the truth. And that's been the exercise I've been doing. And Justin, to my shock and awe, people that were completely resistant to the stuff I've been talking about for years, all of a sudden are calling me up and messaging me and coming on board and asking for more links and asking for more books and wanting to learn more about it. That's encouraging. And all I've ever tried to do is the opposite of what the media is trying to do, which is I've been trying to say, hey, I'm going to present this information. And I don't need to go and regurgitate all the mainstream stuff, because they're already putting that everywhere 24/7. I'm here to give you an alternative perspective with information that you haven't seen yet. And then you be the judge. That's right. Freedom. There's no coercion. I'm not indoctrinating you into a cult. I'm not trying to censor you if you disagree with me. I'll spar with you on my Facebook page. I don't mind that. I'm a martial artist. Bring it on. Let's do it. Let's find out what the truth is. But when you see the other side not doing that and doing everything they possibly can to escape from actually having to confront these truths and the people that are talking about them, and they're silencing them, I feel like for me, that kind of says everything we need to know. So anyways, I've been ranting for a bit. Give me your thoughts, Justin.
No, you're spot on. What it reminds me of is what we learned in the movie Monsters, Inc. about fear. I study a lot of psychology. I'm a philosopher, a lot of spirituality. And when I realized what they were telling us, it gave me a big clue into the control system. And you touched on it beautifully. So let me describe what I'm talking about here. Well, why is an unfaced fear so powerful? It's because at a psychological level, when you have identified something that you don't know what it is, then your mind prepares everything. It prepares for the worst. It's literally as if your mind's trying to figure out, this could be a teddy bear or this could be Medusa. So I better be prepared for every single possibility. Your anxiety levels skyrocket, and your mind literally will create a kind of boogeyman. And so in the movie, that's what happens, right? And every person who's, every kid who's grown up in a house where they had to deal with darkness, going down a dark stairway, looking into a closet dark at night, they know when you don't know what's on the other side of that door, your brain will invent all sorts of boogeymen. And that if you allow that fear to crystallize in your mind, then that fear will keep you trapped. And that's part of what it does. Ultimately, the cabal is not as big and bad as they would like us to believe. They want us to think that they're insurmountable, that they've got us all figured out. And don't get me wrong, these guys have a lot that they've been gathering information. I always like to respect my enemy. But at the same time, when you face a fear, that thing, that massive monster that you've turned it into in your mind, all of a sudden turns into this tiny little morsel that you can quickly pop into your mouth, chew it up, and all of a sudden it's empowering you. I think that's what they're trying to do with the positive forces out there. That, you know, if you take somebody who hasn't researched and hasn't looked into pandemic, they haven't looked into, you know, how the deep state is manipulating events through, you know, Marxist operations and things like this for years, then you're going to see something like George Floyd. You're going to see the coronavirus. You're going to see potentially the White House spraying tear gas, which actually didn't happen, by the way. And you're going to think that, you know, there's all these boogeymen out there. But as soon as you face the truth, as soon as you take your perception that you think is true, a theory, which is what a lot of the media pushes, they push theories, they push unsubstantiated rumors. As soon as you face that and you start doing some fact checking, all of a sudden that fear alchemizes and it empowers you. And like you were saying, one of the things I've noticed too in my own work is you get a little taste of empowerment that comes with facing a fear by actually and honestly looking into the truth yourself. And that is addictive, man. As soon as somebody can quell their own fear in their own mind and actually calm their mind down by facing a fear, and they realize what's happening, they're like, oh my God, everything that I've ever thought to be true needs to be reevaluated. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So,
and that's a very healthy process.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. That's a very healthy process. And you know what? You have to be, you know, this is a time for bravery and courage. And I've been saying this for a long time in my work. I've been saying, you're stronger than you think. So give yourself the opportunity to be strong. Just give yourself the chance. I mean, you don't even know. And I know this, Justin, because I work in a very unique field where I have a very unique scientific lab to experiment on this on a daily basis with people at different ages, different disabilities, all the races, all the genders, whatever. It doesn't matter. Different political, religious affiliate. It doesn't matter. You get everybody in the same room. All that goes away. And it's about what can you do? It's not about what you can say and what you can show me on a whiteboard and what you think and what you believe. None of that shit matters. It's about what are you capable of doing? How strong are you? Where's your weaknesses? And we're not there to criticize weaknesses. We're not there to pick on weaknesses. I got weaknesses. I'm sure you got weaknesses. We all have them. We're there to become aware of them. And we're there to also become aware of our strength. And you can't really become aware of your strength unless you're also aware of your weakness. So you have to give yourself that chance to grow. It's like a plant that needs sunlight every single day, and you've got it stuck in the shade all the time. Well, that's just counterproductive. It doesn't make any sense. Yet that's where people's minds are at, my friend. And it's the evidence of that is everywhere. And the media knows this. And they know how you think. They know how you tick. Do you know how you tick? Do you know how your psychology works? I love that you do psychology. It's so important. That's one of the things that's been missing from this movement for a long time. And it's something that's desperately needed, is to go, this is not just about what's happening in the external world. This is not just about the race riots. This is not just about the coronavirus. This is not just about the incoming, world government, whatever you want to call it, or a blissful utopia or whatever. It's not about that. That's happening, but that's an external manifestation of what's happening in each and every one of us. This is very personal. And that's why I like philosophers and I like psychology and all that, and the martial arts, is because it makes it personal for you. And then what you need to do is go find a way to prove to yourself that you're strong enough to hold up during times of challenge. You need that. Like right now, we see people literally, the suicide rates, man, are out of freaking hand. There are more than the so-called inflated death numbers that we're seeing from this virus. So when I say to those people that criticize me, they're like, Dave, you're dangerous. You're dangerous for questioning the medical authorities. I just listen to the medical authorities. Well, my first answer is, well, sorry, which medical authorities are you listening to? Because there are many and they don't all agree. So you're going to have to pick which one you think is the right one, right? So that takes inner work. To decide between two options takes inner work. You are the one deciding what you believe. If you just follow your fear, though, and you're that little plant that stays in the shade, then you're now the one that's easily led and controlled. And you can test this. Forget about some dark conspiracy at the top of the world. What about just in your personal life? What kind of people have taken advantage of you in your life? And what was it? You could sit there for all time, drinking a beer with your buddies and moaning and complaining about those people. That person took advantage of me. That girl broke my heart. That person. You can sit there all day and point the finger out there. And yeah, the blame probably is due. But What was your part in that? What was your part in that? What was it in you that allowed them to become your master? And what was that part in you that allowed yourself to become a slave to them? So there's that beautiful saying that's age old, and it is no master above, no slave below. And if we could do this in our personal lives and prove to ourselves that we're strong enough to lead our own lives, we're strong enough to think for ourselves, and then from that place build community with others, as opposed to just building community and having zero inner stability or inner strength, and then watch it melt down into a, communistic hellhole. That's what happened way too many times in history. This is a time where humanity is being shown, all right, we need to look at the past. We need to go within, face our fears, as you say, understand how it works, and give yourself the chance to be strong. You're way stronger than you think. And I've personally proven this to children, to adults, to people from all backgrounds, countless times, where they come in and they are kind of, they're hunched up. You can tell they're afraid. Obviously, martial arts is pretty intimidating, right? In the beginning, you're like, oh, someone's going to kick my ass. I don't want to look bad, right? And when you get past that, and you actually, I'll take like a 6-year-old child and I'll show them how to take me down to the ground easily. I'll be like, why? Do this, put yourself here, do this, move, break my balance, and then boom. And when you see the look on these kids' faces of like, they just felled the giant, they were David and Goliath for a second, there's no stopping that kid forever. That kid signs up, they come in a few months, they're a yellow belt, they start competing in tournaments, then they go to the phase of, it's up on a high, and then they get a few ass kickings, and then they're like, oh, and then I go, yeah, but this is the tempering. This is you becoming stronger. You need those adversaries. You need those people to push you. That's going to make you even better. Don't give up. And that's the conversation I feel like I'm having with people right now, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really inspiring. I mean, one thing I like to say sometimes is, what's better, to train for combat while somebody's trying to mug you, or to train for combat in the training field in a safe place? And it's obviously
before the mugging,
exactly. And that's what I feel like collectively is a grand human, spiritual awakening. That's what we've been dealing with. Is, what we're dealing with right now has been leading up for years. So now we have an opportunity, before it gets too crazy anymore, to really go within and train up and learn how to use our mental tools, our mental swords, our physical swords, our emotional swords, everything that we have available to us. I wanted to transition real quick. There's all this talk about, changing society and making it better and ending corruption and all this. And so there's these ideals, like I was talking about in the beginning, that we as humans, I think everybody has the capacity to reach for an ideal. You can imagine a better world, but how do you implement that better world? That's a big issue. And I think you, as your training as a martial artist, you have probably more articulated skill and wisdom with this meta concept of being pragmatic with respect to an ideal than maybe anybody. So we're living in this situation where Antifa is saying the way to realize this ideal, the deep state Democrats are saying the way to realize this idea is to burn it all down, to tear everything down, to defund the police, to do all these things. Like, given your background, like, what are some of the thoughts that you have about what are some good ways that we can take a good ideal, like trying to end police brutality, and do it in a way that doesn't cause more harm?
Apply the blade of the mind, logic and reason and intuition, put it all together, look at history, learn from the great geniuses that have written down the solutions for centuries that humanity's ignored, locked up, burned, tortured, thrown in prison. Let's go look at those people. Here we are. Okay. So if Antifa or any of these groups or any of these people that just want to complain to the system and complain about the government and complain about capitalism and complain about this and that while they're using those exact devices to exist, I would say, let's go back and read the works of the people that are the most hated in our society. And by most hated, I mean, I'm not talking about the Adolf Hitlers of the world, although you should study your enemy. I'm talking about those great writers that a lot of people don't even know exist, that were warning us about this, that lived through great times of chaos. Like, our generation today didn't live through world wars and great mass depressions and calamities. We've had it pretty good. We've been sitting back. We've come up in the computer age. The vast majority of our knowledge is secondhand knowledge. It's repeating knowledge from other people. Very few people take it upon themselves to go through the process of personal development, self-discovery, learning about the principles of natural law, learning about the principles of self-responsibility. That's a big one. And just coming to the ideal that when they're saying, free me from the government and free me from the oppressor and free me from this police that are just always out there beating everybody up and killing everybody, even though if I get a weird creak on my floorboards at night, I'm calling those people right away because I'm not going to empower myself, because I already believe that we shouldn't have the right to bear arms because guns kill people. So I'll just call the people that do have the guns to do all my work for me. I'm sitting there going, well, then you're not the person to take the reins and tell us how to change the world, because you haven't even changed your world yet. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's really pretty simple. There are things that work and there are things that don't work. And ideals aside, belief systems aside, all that be damned. What works, what doesn't work. For example, if I'm doing a grappling match with you and you're more experienced than I am, and I walk up to you and I say, Justin, I don't like the way you're doing that triangle choke. I'm going to show you a better way to do the triangle choke. And yet every time I show it to you, you kick my ass with it and just prove it wrong. And I still keep coming back and critiquing, going, no, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. After a while, you're just going to be like, you should just get out of here, man. I don't know. You're not really seeking the truth about what the most efficient way to do the triangle choke is. And all you're doing is trying to be an expert that you're not. And you're coming from a place of ego, which means you're not thinking logically. So therefore, you're not going to have a conversation with someone like that, because you realize instinctively that that's not desirable. That's not someone that's there to give you any kind of truth. If I came with you and I maybe said, okay, I have some experience with this. Can I just show you another alternative? And then you're like, sure. And then I do it and then it works. And then I prove it to you and I do it maybe 3 or 4 different times and it still works. Then you can be like, damn, that's a really slick setup. I'm going to use that. How did you come to that? And we're going to exchange knowledge and information. So I guess what I'm saying is that with a lot of the conversations that are being had in our sort of political social milieu today, it's a lot of people that are just mudslinging, and a lot of people who are very ignorant that are pretending to not be ignorant. A lot of people that are ignoring facts. They're ignoring historical facts. They're ignoring the great geniuses that tried to warn us. I've actually been doing a campfire series where I've been reading books like, from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He wrote a book called A Warning to the West, which is actually just a compilation of speeches that he gave when he was brought over to America to warn America about the signs at that time, which this would have been what, in the 70s or 60s? I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But he was warning America. He's saying, you guys are all, back then, you're already heading towards what we saw happen in the Soviet Union. So I'm here to warn you about the little tiny things that start to get pushed in one direction or another, kind of under everybody's nose. Everybody's distracted. We kind of forget about it. We leave it. And that cancer grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And he's there to say, hey, read my Gulag Archipelago. I'll tell you scores of examples of well-meaning people that wanted to change the system that ended up, not making it out alive, and were reporting their neighbors to the officials and were still in denial all the way to the Gulag work camps. Those are the kind of people we should listen to. And even though it's kind of dark to read that material, it's a warning. It's somebody saying, I lived through it. I survived it. You guys are making the same mistakes. Watch out for those mistakes. And what does society do? Get him out of here. Bring some more Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake in the room. This guy's nuts. It's too many big words. I don't have time to look in dictionaries and learn for myself. And so that's the problem, is that it's become a place of ignorance. We're in a space of ignorance. And what I see though, is I see that lifting. And what I love, Justin, I love waking up in the morning. I get a little excited feeling in my chest when I watch the mainstream media doing 2 separate reports and contradicting each other, and then taking screenshots of it, and other people are doing it. And then they post it on the internet and everybody's like, what? They used footage from the World War Z trailer in the looting footage on CBC. What? CBC, or what is it? CBS News or MSNBC, whatever it was.
Yeah.
MSNBC. Oh, the CBC was, I'm a Canadian, CBC. CBS News was caught 3 times red-handed, actually not just making a mistake, not just doing fake news, but actually putting footage from like 10 years ago from other places and superimposing it into their reporting to say that this is what's going on in Italy in the hospitals and all the other accounts we can get. And I just sit back and I go, guys, we don't need to do anything. We just got to let them continue to be the worst advertisement for themselves and to prove us right time and time again. So we're not really in a position where we're all in panic. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh, the world, it's divided. It's one side versus another side. I think that's bullshit, man. I see something completely different happening. And if we could really go back and listen to those people that warned us and then apply that knowledge that you're going to get from them to what's happening in the world today, the scales will drop from your eyes. You'll see things for what they really are. And that is what takes away the fear.
Yes.
Hiding from the danger, saying, oh, the danger doesn't exist. Stop telling me about the danger. I don't want to hear about, oh, it's too scary. No, that doesn't get rid of the fear. That makes it worse. It compounds it and it rots your soul. Face it, confront it, become enlightened with it, and then work to combat it in your own mind and your own self. And you'll find that weight lifts from you. So I'm seeing a big turnaround. I've got, maybe I'm just trying to be optimistic here, but I've got a lot of hope for what's coming, man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think what we're seeing right now is a systematic implosion of the powers that be. They are pulling out all their stops to try to maintain control. They're revealing to the public their intentions, their lawlessness, their lies and deception. And, we have millions of people in the United States alone, not to mention worldwide, who are actively questioning the system. I mean, it's almost become a game at this point. When the media puts out a report, who can be the person that can find all the mistruths and the untruths and the fake news? I
love it.
And it's great. I mean, I never thought, and I'm sure you're on Twitter, or if you're not, check it out. But, I just recently became way more active on Twitter because I started to see a lot of citizen journalists, people questioning things. And oddly enough, if you follow the right places, you can find some amazing debunkings of stuff within minutes. I mean, the news mainstream media put stuff out and bang, it's gone, debunked. So, there's plenty of reason to be hopeful.
I would say, Jay, I would go as far to say that this is the greatest time to be alive in human history. I know those are big words, but I would say, think about it, guys. Think about it. If this was 50 years ago, if this was 100 years ago, we would not have the same access to information that we have access to right now. Mm-hmm. In today's day and age, ignorance is actually a choice. Yes. See, back in the day, not long ago, and for most of human history, we were illiterate. We were completely reliant on the priests and the rulers and the lords that ran the lands and all that kind of stuff for all of our information. We've been raised as cattle for thousands and thousands of years. We've been trained like pets for thousands and thousands of years. And yet here we are. There was a glimmer of hope, where this idea of freedom started to creep in. People go, you know what, maybe this like control stuff and whipping people and slaves and all that, maybe that's not the way to go. Let's try the freedom experiment. And then immediately, forces come in and try to get involved with that and disassemble it and break it apart from within. And they were successful to a degree, but that flame never died. Humanity never forgot about it. And now we're watching this whole thing happen where the powers that be, the control system is trying to usher everybody back into the pen. They're like, hey, the animals are jumping out of their pens. We got to make the pens higher. We need more control. The thing is, it's still not working. In fact, the more that they try to do, they're in a place of checkmate, man. They're in a place of checkmate, and they did it to themselves because their hubris was their worst enemy. And we're exploiting it. And if you're listening right now and you happen to be an evil psychopathic dictator, TikTok, time's coming soon. You made a big mistake. You underestimated human consciousness, which is actually the same stuff that swirls galaxies. So you can't really screw with that, can you? We're coming for you. It's all over. And we don't have to fire a shot. We don't have to burn down businesses and loot and riot and throw bricks from those conveniently placed pallets that were put all over all of these cities. We don't need that. That is not effective. That's not going to bring people together. That's not going to bring down the evil, corrupt social order. We need to work together from all different communities, all different backgrounds to disseminate this information, to reignite the fires of freedom, truth, reason, and courage, again, in young people and old people. We need to tell people that you don't need to live a life of ill health. You don't need to be susceptible the way they're telling you to every single virus. Like, why are there so many immunocompromised people in the world? What did we do to mess that up? Because nature works in perfect order. And by perfect order, I mean so perfect that if one little mechanism of your brain didn't work well or something happened or a wire started to cross, it starts to throw the whole thing out of whack. So the very ability that you have to watch this right now, listen to this right now, hopefully understand what we're saying, shows that you're already experiencing that perfect order. And yet here we've got these people trying to say, no, nature doesn't have the perfect order. We have the perfect order. Just sit back at home in solitary confinement until Bill Gates makes the quantum dot vaccines and has you all vaccinated mandatorily. That's what's going to bring health to you. No, people are waking up to the fact that that's just not true. That's not the only way to achieve optimal health. And so we're learning so much right now, Justin. And I just got to say, I'm happy. I'm thrilled. I get up excited every single morning. None of this stuff scares me. In fact, I welcome it because I know that in order for great change to take place, you got to suffer a little bit. You got to have those hard, dark nights of the soul. It's like when I was trying to train for certain competitions, I would push myself to the max nth degree to try to, not just to get the techniques down, but just to test my mettle and prove to myself that I was strong enough, even under the worst circumstances. And when I did that kind of preparation, win, lose, or draw, I would feel like I went in there, gave my best, and I would feel like a winner no matter what. The times where I was lazy and kind of cheated the game and didn't really put the preparation in, and you get humbled, and then it's even worse because you're like, yeah, I got humbled because I lost the battle in myself before this person came and kicked my ass. So right now, this is where I keep saying, I just did a whole series on my channel. You can check it out. It's a whole analysis of the Lord of the Rings series. I did that very, very intentionally because I wanted to try to show people, just like Aragorn said in the second film to that young boy, when that boy was trembling in fear at the battle of, whatever gates there, he was saying, there's always hope. There's always hope. You never lose hope. There's always hope. You have to trust yourself. And when you understand that and you go into that myth and you realize that myth is a compilation of a lot of the beautiful stories that come out of the Western tradition and other traditions as well, that are there to inspire humanity to grow, to be strong, to come together as individuals, not as this big Borg-like entity that just repeats everything they're told by some master, to appreciate freedom, to appreciate bravery, to understand the nature of evil, to understand the corruptibility of each and every one of us and how to transcend it. There's so many beautiful things in that story. So I did a 4-part series on my channel. Each episode's about 3 or 4 hours long. And I go through it with this beautiful woman. She's just so fantastic. She's one of my new favorites. Her name is Laura Lee Scaife. You should definitely have her on. She's brilliant. And her and I did this analysis of this thing. And I've gotten so much positive feedback from people. And I did that to sort of break up here's all the hardcore facts about what's happened in the media and all that. We need to do that. But then I try to counterbalance it with some right brain logos, go back to the myth, learn some inspiration, learn how to be brave and have courage, learn how to recognize evil and then defeat it. And I love that saying from Arwen where she's like, you will face this great evil and you will defeat it. And so I made that series for you guys. It's freely available. Take it, make clips of it, share it, do whatever you want with it. I don't care, because that's something that came from the heart. I followed my intuition and synchronicity on that one, and it's really, really doing well. And this is the kind of information that we need. We need to remember who we are. We need to shake off these chains of fear, of depression, of anxiety. We need to shake off this lie that humans need to be all separated and never talk to each other and touch each other ever again. That's complete bullshit. And now even there's thousands of experts speaking out about how that is complete nonsense. And we need to start listening to the true heroes, the true sages, and the true teachers that I think more and more people are tuning into. So thanks to people like you, Justin, and channels like this, we need more. The more, the better. We're going to win this, man. I'm telling you, as long as I'm breathing, we're going to win this.
Oh yeah, unquestionably. I study a lot of history. I'm involved in a group that does a lot of back traces of history. And one of the things that it can't be denied is that every 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years or so, freedom wanes because people get lazy, they get ignorant, they want to eat bread and have the circuses. And then the tyranny comes in to take advantage of the ignorance. And then over time, the tyrannical people, the cabal, they get arrogant, and then they sow the seeds of their own destruction, and then freedom rises again. And so this is not the first time that we've overthrown our oppressors. However, this might be the first time that we have a global revolution happening.
Yes.
And I would argue that the evolution of consciousness is not a sine wave that just sits and floats up and down. It's actually a progression upwards. And what we've actually been doing is every time we go through these epochs, we're accumulating more wisdom, we're accumulating more skill. And now we're getting to the point where I argue we're literally at the threshold of what might be 1,000 years of peace, something like that, like very prophetic. Because I mean, if you think about it, if we right now, the people listening to the show and anybody else who might not be hearing it, takes the time to really learn the principles of what makes a true, just, fair, honest society with respect of the truth and the principles that have eternal coherence like natural law, then what we could do is literally create a society that never dies and gets more free and progressively toward this golden age ideal that we've been talking about. I think we're literally at the cusp of that right now. And we just need all hands on deck. I mean, why wouldn't you want to join in that party? I mean, come on, right?
Oh, I'm with you. And you know what? Why not believe it? What's wrong with that? We need to believe.
Exactly.
You know what? I've been a person that studied, comparative religion and mythology my whole life. I've always said I'm not religious, but I am somebody that has a relationship with God, divine, the Tao, the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it, Geist. And I think everybody has their relationship with that, or at least they're finding that relationship. And you need some kind of faith. You need some kind of hope. You must have that. Why would you live a life of despair? Why would you allow your mind to go to a place where it's like, it's hopeless, we're all going to die? And like, why would you allow it? As a martial artist, man, the moment doubt creeps in my mind, I'm done. I'm done. And that's the experiment. And we don't need to go that way. So I challenge people, believe in what you're saying. Yes, we can create a world. Look, if, for example, I was giving this example the other night, I was reading this passage from Solzhenitsyn, okay? And if you haven't read him, you just got to read him. It's beautiful. Not only is it very, very poignant and accurate and logical, it's also extremely beautiful. And he says just some amazing things. And I said, okay, this is somebody, if you just believe that because of oppression and this, one group oppressing another, therefore it's just this constant cycle of being oppressed all the time, and you get this victim mindset. Well, then why does a Solzhenitsyn exist and countless other people that we could talk about, right? Why do they exist? Where they come out of like the worst possible experience of human tragedy, brutality, evil, and darkness that you can possibly imagine. You can't even imagine it. You can't even imagine it. I've spoken to people that fled Romania. I had them on my show and said, look, I moved to Canada to try to escape this horrible dictatorship plunge into tyranny that was happening. And here, lo and behold, here I am, and it's happening here, and nobody's even flinching. And but anyways, to go back, I'm like, these people that have warned us and have been through this horrible evil, or Viktor Frankl, or any of these people that survived evil, they don't come out and become murdering psychopaths. They don't go out rioting and looting in the streets and acting like a bunch of children. They don't do that. What do? They use the blade of their mind. They use their sacred word, and they write beautiful words on a piece of paper. And then that goes viral, and it inspires an entire movement back towards the light. I mean, without Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, the Soviet Union, the wall would have never come down. It would never been exposed for what it is. And so he used his bravery, and he decided to channel all the rage, all the pain, all the trauma, all the suffering into creating beautiful work. That's what human beings do. That's what we're capable of, that even from the depths of hell, we can come back and we can float above that, and we can create beauty and wonder and real magic in the world. Never doubt it for a second. There's countless examples that I could list for you. And that was my question, was these people that think it's all deterministic, it's all just based on, all these different, there are factors that can corrupt you. There are factors that can leave you psychologically mutilated. But guess what? Good news. You can change that dynamic no matter how bad it gets. And that's the hope people need to have. So if you have faith in anything at all, have faith in that.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, that's one of the things, looking at religion, spirituality, hope is the ultimate kind of meta concept that is pushed. And myself, I used to have a big problem with addiction in my early 20s. And I was basically denying reality. I had issues and I was trying to avoid them. And so I created all these boogeymen, like I was talking about in the beginning, which then created a lot of emotional anxiety. And I was escaping that through drugs. And I did that for like 3 years, and I created even more boogeymen, and it made things a whole lot worse. And when I finally realized, you know what, I can't do this forever. What am I going to do, drugs for the rest of my life and, end up dead at 45 or stealing everything valuable from my friends and allies and just living a life of solitude? No, I needed to realize the truth. And when I had that moment of a shadow facing my shadow, it shook me to my foundations. That's exactly what I needed to go through, though, because once I had gone through that shadow moment, which I would argue that's exactly what we're having right now on our planet, then I was able to face the situation with everything I had in truth. And with that, I mean, Jesus, what I'd learned from that experience of overcoming my addiction to this day still empowers me and gives me hope in times of darkness. So, just to close out, I know we're running out here on the clock, but final thoughts on all of this, any advice that you can give to people who are maybe unsure, trying to figure out what's happening, maybe some sources of information. What general advice can you give to people who are maybe feeling like the walls are closing in on them?
Well, first of all, Justin, from my conversations off air with you and just having this conversation with you now, I got to say, people, stay tuned into this channel. You're doing great work. Keep up doing that work. You can come over to my channel. I'm doing my very best, even on my Instagram stories every day, of trying to provide a mixture of facts and information that you're not being told, of funny memes, which this is ultimately a meme war and it's hilarious and you got to be a part of it. It's so fun. And then also enlightening and philosophical information from some of these brilliant geniuses that I keep talking about. And I would say, also one thing I've been advising people to do is, in tandem with looking at the reality and looking at the world and seeing what's happening and then confronting yourself, get back into some good fiction for a bit. That's why I brought up the Lord of the Rings again. Get into stuff that inspires you. Not the stuff that's just superficially there. It's something that's there to activate your own inner myth. Every time you go to sleep at night and you have a dream, you're experiencing your own inner myth. And that's something that's very powerful. Go read the people like Carl Jung. Go read Percy Shelley. Go read Wilhelm Reich. Go read, there's so many people we could cite, the Solzhenitsyns and the great thinkers, but then also take time to think for yourself. Go out in nature, screw what they're saying. You're not going to give the trees COVID. Go out in nature, go stand by some water, go listen to the birds, go play with your children, we need human contact. Screw what they're saying. You need it. Get out there and start communicating with your fellow human beings, and be open to learning. Just realize, look, I say this, if you're here right now and you survived this and you're here in 2020, because I know 2020 feels like the biggest car accident that ever happened, but like, you're here for this. You incarnated in this life to come here. You're here on a mission. Maybe you just don't know what that mission is just yet, but you can find it. Don't let everybody else tell you what your mission is. Don't let everybody else try to influence you to the point where you're no longer yourself. Go read some Bruce Lee and listen to what he had to say about how to actualize your potential and find what it is, and don't follow the crowd, and listen to those maverick teachers that are there to encourage you to trust your own mind, trust your own will, trust your own heart. Listen to that divine source of intelligence that exists in you. Don't listen to the media. Watch it and make fun of it and have the popcorn and then make memes out of it and alert your friends to all the bullshit, but don't let it get you. The matrix doesn't need to have you. You can transcend it. So I find ways to empower yourself. I even did on my Patreon page, I sort of created a little at-home training series for a lot of my students that sadly can't come and train with me anymore. And then I got more requests from people that just follow me from all over the world. Like, yeah, I'd like to know. So I started doing how to make, we got some nunchucks and we're doing nunchuck training in the garage, doing some, kicking drills and rolling and stretching and breathing. And, I did some videos for that. And I just said, hey, why don't you find something at home that you can do, whether it's martial art training, or yoga or meditation or some pottery or art or drawing or whatever. I've been doing it with my kids and they're doing great. In fact, I find more people are now deciding, yeah, I'm not going to send my kid back to school. They're just going to stay right home. They've been learning way more being at home with me than they did over there. And so, remember to celebrate humanity. We naturally celebrate life. That's what we want. That's what your soul wants. It wants to celebrate life. But don't let the dark stuff, don't let all the oppression, don't let the dark side get you down. They're just doing their stupid shit they've always done. Just be like, just be like that neighbor that's like, he's out there chopping those trees again. Don't worry about it. Evil is not the only force at work in the world. There are forces of good that are there. And when you're seeking the truth honestly for yourself and around the world, unseen forces will come to your aid. Mm-hmm. And I believe unseen forces are coming to the aid of humanity in this moment. So recognize you're in the greatest time to be alive. Join the movement to become awake, to learn about our history, to learn about how we can correct mistakes in the past, and to build a better world.
Couldn't agree more. Fantastic advice. David, it's been a pleasure having you on. Where can people find your work and follow you?
You can follow me on Facebook. You can just look up David Whitehead. I also have a Facebook page called Way of the Truth Warrior. I've been having a lot of fun on Instagram. It's one of my more favorite social media places. So you can follow me there at DW Truth Warrior. I also have my YouTube channel. You can just look me up. I've got all kinds of amazing content there. Some fantastic guests that have come on, and man, I almost get goosebumps thinking about the conversations I've had over the last 3 months with these beautiful people. I've got more coming your way. I did a really, really crazy interview last night that I'm editing together. I interviewed a DIA agent that was claiming to be one of the posters on the Q boards. If you haven't got into the QAnon thing, which has just been a research project I've been doing. So what I'm doing is I kind of approach the whole thing as, well, I'm skeptical, I'm curious, I want to see what's going on. And this guy absolutely blew my socks off. So I'm kind of putting it out there to say, I don't know what's what, but I found myself agreeing with a lot of what this guy was talking about. And at the very least, it's a very interesting puzzle piece. So I do a lot of different kinds of work on my channel. I got a lot more interviews coming your way. I got a gentleman coming on. Oh my God. Somebody's coming on my show tomorrow that we're going to be talking about the pharmaceutical industries, the vaccines, and also solutions to bringing your body to a state of optimal health. So that's what I've been working on. And yeah, at DW Truth Warrior, that's where you can find me.
Beautiful. Wow. Great stuff. I know I'm going to certainly be checking out and probably posting a lot of it to Stillness in the Storm. So really appreciate you coming on, David. Keep the light of hope alive. And thanks so much for coming on. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Justin. You're awesome. I'm now subscribed to your channels. I'm going to follow your work. Keep doing this, and people support Justin, support people like this, support the people that are doing this work. Don't support the criminals that are lying to you. So thanks a lot for this opportunity, guys. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, David. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. David, we'll catch you next time. And all right. Well, everybody, that was our show. We are going to go ahead and close out. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can check us out at Awarewolf. We have it on Spotify. We have it on podcasts, which you can get on iTunes. And we are, just as a quick reminder, we have the season 2 opener of Into the Storm, my show on edgeofwonder.tv. That's going to be happening on the 23rd of June. And we will likely have a Q&A end of season recap where I'll get to hang out and talk to everybody, answer questions, things like that. That's probably going to be happening next week. So keep your eye out for that. And keep the hope, the light of hope in your eyes and your hearts, everybody. We're going through some really intense stuff right now as a collective. But like we were talking about during the podcast, in order to really grow from a bad situation, in order to heal an addiction, in order to heal an injury, you have to face it. As Laura Eisenhower has said, I think this is so true. In order to heal it, you got to feel it. And that's what's happening right now. So much love, everybody. See you on the flip side. See you in 2 weeks with Awarewolf Radio. I'm your host, Justin Deschamps, Stillness in the Storm. Take care.